My family abandoned my 17-year-old daughter on a remote island. No food, no water. She'll be fine, my mom said. She just needed space, my sister added. I didn't shout, I didn't scream, I did something else. The next morning, my daughter was safe, and then they got the call. I watched their faces drain of color, their mouths froze in mid-sentence, as everything they thought they had buried came crashing back in a single moment. But it didn't start with a fight, not the kind that echoes through a house and slams doors. It started quietly. It started with a soft buzz on my wrist, a low battery alert from my daughter's emergency tracker. I was in the middle of reviewing reports at work when the alert came through. I dismissed it at first, thinking maybe she forgot to charge it, maybe it was a glitch. But something didn't sit right. Elena was meticulous. She charged her electronics obsessively. She once reminded me to plug in my own phone mid-sentence. A dead tracker from her. That wasn't normal. That was a warning. I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. I called again and again. Nothing. By the fifth try, I was already cold inside. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from clarity. Elena had gone on a trip with my mother and my sister Daphne. A family getaway, they said, just a few days of sun sand and reconnection. They told me it would be good for Elena to bond with them. They said she was too distant, too guarded. What they meant was she saw through them. Elena, my only child, didn't fit into their polished image of family. She was smart, reserved, a little sarcastic, and very aware of the quiet games my family liked to play. But when Daphne texted her, "Let's start over," and my mom added, "She needs her family, Nicole," I hesitated. I wanted to protect her, but I also wanted to believe just once that they meant it. Elena looked at me and said, "What if they're actually trying this time?" I wanted to believe it too, so I said yes. That was 3 days ago. Now her emergency tracker was dying somewhere in the middle of an island with no signal, no hotels, no tourist attractions, just wilderness. I opened the GPS map. The dot blinked faintly on the edge of a coastal forest reserve miles from the main dock, away from any marked path. I called my mother. She answered too quickly. "She wandered off a little," she said lightly. She was just upset. Daphne chimed in, her voice flat. "She needed some air. You know how dramatic she can be." I didn't say a word. I hung up. Not out of anger. I hung up because I knew exactly what I needed to do. I opened my laptop, booked a one-way flight. Then I opened an old contact. I hadn't spoken to him in years. Ryan answered on the second ring. "I need your help," I said. He didn't ask why, just asked where. And that's when I started moving, quietly, deliberately. Because if I didn't, I was going to lose her. My name is Nicole. I'm 34, and I've spent most of my adult life doing two things: surviving and staying quiet. I used to be a financial analyst for a corporate firm in Chicago, then burned out by 30, pivoted into nonprofit work, and never looked back. I don't raise my voice. I don't explain myself twice. And I don't forget. I'm not the type of woman my family ever quite knew what to do with. My mother, Angela, is the kind of woman who thinks being polite is more important than being honest. My sister, Daphne, is polished, loud, and endlessly performative. She's the golden child. Always has been. I was the quiet one, the thinker, the planner, the one they only noticed when they needed something. Growing up, my role was clear: be helpful, be agreeable, be invisible. That ended when I got pregnant at 17. No husband, no plan, just a baby, and a terrified heart that knew it had to keep going. Elena saved me. Not in the cliché way. She didn't make my life easier. She made it real. From the moment she arrived, I became a version of myself no one in my family recognized. I stopped asking for permission. I stopped apologizing for existing. And I started building a life, brick by stubborn brick, that no one else had a say in. Elena is 17 now. She's sharp as hell, impossibly observant, and emotionally precise in ways that sometimes scare me. She doesn't do fake. She doesn't play nice. She'll look you in the eye and ask why your smile doesn't match your eyes. She's quiet around most people, especially my family. But with me, she's a storm of questions, dry humor, and unexpected softness. She's always had a complicated relationship with my mother and Daphne. My mother tries too hard, pushing glittery gifts and awkward compliments. Daphne doesn't try at all. She sees Elena the way she's always seen me, as a threat to the script where she's the star. Despite this, they've always maintained the illusion of inclusion. Family holidays, group texts, occasional brunches where Elena was tolerated but never really welcomed. I thought keeping the peace was enough. I thought if I just stayed quiet and distant, I could shield Elena from the slow, insidious cruelty I'd grown up with. I was wrong, because the truth is silence doesn't protect anyone. It just gives people room to sharpen their knives. I used to think I owed my family grace for simply being there, for not disowning me when I became a teenage mother, for not rejecting Elena outright. But as the years passed, I saw the cost. Every time I showed up to help Daphne with her bills, every time I stayed silent, when my mother made a backhanded comment about Elena being too intense, I taught my daughter that love looked like endurance. I thought I was being strong, but strength isn't swallowing your voice. Strength is drawing a line. I was late learning that, but I wasn't too late. When my grandmother Eleanor, my mother's mother, started reaching out to me privately, I sensed a shift. Eleanor was different. Sharp-tongued, intimidating, and utterly immune to flattery, she was the only person in our bloodline who ever looked at Elena like she saw a future in her. They bonded in ways I never expected. Tea on Sundays, debates about case law, matching stubbornness that neither of them tried to hide. And when Eleanor told me she had updated her estate plan to split everything evenly between me and Elena, I knew what that meant. I knew it would ignite something ugly. I just didn't know how far they'd go to take it back. But after that island, after what they did, I stopped wondering. They didn't just cross a line, they erased it. And now they were about to find out who I really was. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was gradual, like the tide pulling away grain by grain until the shoreline looked unfamiliar. At first, it was small things. Daphne would make offhand jokes about how I was raising a future lawyer, followed by that dry chuckle of hers that made every compliment sound like an insult. My mother would comment on Elena's coldness, her lack of femininity, her preference for dark colors over floral dresses, as if personality traits were offenses that needed softening. I ignored it at first. We were used to it. Elena knew how to keep her distance, and I had spent years perfecting the art of disengaging without making it obvious. But then the requests started coming. Daphne needed help with bills. Again. Her ex-husband had stopped payments. Again. Her twins needed new laptops. My mother called to say the furnace had gone out. Again. And every time I tried to set a boundary, I was met with the same rehearsed disappointment. Family is supposed to help each other. My mother would sigh, not keep score. But that's exactly what they were doing, keeping score of how much they could extract from me before I said no. When I finally did, when I declined to co-sign another loan for Daphne, things got cold. And that's when the story shifted from financial resentment to something darker. It was around that time that my grandmother Eleanor called me in for tea. Not lunch, not brunch. Tea. That was her way of saying, this isn't casual. She sat me down, poured the good Earl Grey into her china set, and placed a folder on the table between us. I'm making changes, she said. I've watched you carry this family longer than anyone realized. I've watched them drain you, dismiss you, and still expect you to show up with a smile. That ends now. Inside the folder was an updated draft of her estate plan. 50% of everything to me. 50% to Elena. Nothing for Daphne. Nothing for the twins. I didn't say anything for a full minute. You're going to start a war, I finally said. Eleanor sipped her tea, then let it begin. She didn't do this out of spite. She did it because she saw the truth. Elena had been there for her, had taken the time to listen, to help, to connect, not for money, but because she genuinely respected her. Daphne, on the other hand, hadn't visited in months. When the news leaked because nothing in our family stays private, Daphne went ballistic. She called me already mid-scream. Are you out of your mind? She shrieked. That's 3 kids against 1. You're seriously okay with this? I didn't write the will, I replied. Eleanor did. But you didn't stop her, she snapped before hanging up. My mother called next. Nicole, be reasonable. Daphne is going through a lot. Her job, the divorce, the kids. Elena doesn't need the money like they do. I'm not responsible for her marriage, I said flatly. That word need struck me, as if deserving something had to be qualified by desperation, as if my daughter's calm competence made her less worthy. From that moment on, the exclusion began. Quietly, of course. Elena stopped getting invited to family dinners. Group texts stopped including her. When Daphne's daughter had a birthday party, everyone posted pictures except Elena wasn't in any of them. And I knew she was there. She came home that night quieter than usual. "Do you think they hate me?" she asked. No, I lied. But even then, a part of me knew the answer. When the invitation came for the island trip, a last-minute family getaway to reconnect, I was immediately suspicious. My mother said we thought it would be nice, just the girls and the cousins, a chance to bond. Daphne followed up with a text to Elena. "Let's start fresh, no drama, just the beach." Elena stared at the message a long time before turning to me. "Maybe this time it's different," she said. And I wanted that. I wanted her to believe in the possibility of something better. So I said, okay. I helped her pack, checked her chargers, her tracker, her sunscreen, gave her the hydration lecture. Twice. "You're acting like I'm hiking through a jungle," she joked. "You'd be surprised," I muttered. Then I hugged her tight, told her I loved her more times than I usually dared, and watched her leave with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. 3 days before the island trip, Daphne found out about the will. I don't know how. Maybe my mother told her. Maybe she went snooping. Maybe it was just another one of those accidents that happen in families where boundaries don't exist. But however she learned the truth, the moment she did, the temperature in our already frigid relationship dropped to sub-zero. She called me, voice already breaking from screaming. "You're seriously okay with this?" she demanded. "You're just going to let her take everything?" "Who's her?" I asked. "Elena. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about." She manipulated Eleanor. "She's 17. What the hell does she need all that money for?" "She didn't ask for it," I said. "She didn't even know." "Yeah, right. Like you didn't coach her into it. You've always wanted to edge me out. This is exactly the kind of stunt you'd pull. Quiet, calculated, and sanctimonious." I didn't answer. There was no point. She was already in free fall. She ended the call by telling me I'd regret it. I believed her. My mother called later that evening. Her tone was more composed, but no less sharp. "Nicole, you have to admit this looks unfair. Daphne's going through so much. Elena doesn't even seem close to Eleanor. Not like family. They have tea every Sunday," I said. "She helps her with her medication tracker. She's the only one who listens." "She's intense," my mother replied. "A little manipulative, if we're being honest. I'm just worried Eleanor's not thinking clearly." There it was again, that word, manipulative. They used it to describe anything they couldn't control. Elena wasn't manipulative. She was precise. She asked hard questions and didn't perform emotion for approval. That made them uncomfortable. And in our family, discomfort was a crime punishable by isolation. After that call, things went quiet. Too quiet. No more group chat updates, no check-ins. When I texted to confirm Elena's flight details for the island trip, I got a one-word reply from Daphne, handled. I should have pulled her from the trip right then, but I didn't. Because even though I knew my family could be petty, I didn't think they were dangerous. Not yet. The night before the flight, Elena laid out her packing on the bed. 2 swimsuits, 1 black, 1 navy, 3 paperbacks, her charger, backup charger, and waterproof power bank. Her emergency beacon, a small watch-like device that tracked her location and sent alerts if she stayed still too long. I made her test it in front of me. "You act like I'm being sent to an uncharted jungle," she said, smirking. "Isn't this just a family trip?" I didn't laugh. I checked her sunscreen again. I told her to hydrate every hour. I made her promise to keep the emergency tracker on even if she thought it was ridiculous. "You're always overprepared," she said. "And you're always underestimating people," I replied. That was our last real conversation before the storm hit. Elena left that morning with Daphne and my mother, bags packed, earbuds in, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I stood on the porch longer than necessary after the car pulled away. Something in my chest was tight, like a hand clenching around a string tied to nothing. I told myself I was just being paranoid. I told myself they wouldn't do anything drastic. But somewhere deep down, I already knew. When the tracker pinged 2 days later, I felt it before I saw it. A pulse of fear followed by a strange cold stillness. Her signal had gone quiet for nearly 3 hours. Then it came back briefly before triggering a low battery alert. I opened the map. The dot blinked faintly near the northern edge of the island, far from the resort. No marked trails, no phone towers, no boats. I called her. Voicemail. I called again and again. Then I called my mother. She answered on the first ring. "Oh, she wandered off a little," she said casually. "She was just being dramatic. She needed space," Daphne added from somewhere nearby. "You know how teenagers are." I didn't say anything. Not then. Not a single word. I hung up. And in that moment, something inside me locked into place. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop, found the next available flight, and called the only person I trusted with emergencies, Ryan. We hadn't spoken in years, but he didn't hesitate. "Where is she?" he asked. "A private island, northern edge, no roads, no infrastructure. She's 17 and alone." "I'll bring gear," he said. "You bring receipts." The invitation came wrapped in politeness like most traps in my family. It started with a text from my mother. "We're thinking of a little getaway. Just the girls, some sun, some ocean. The cousins could use the bonding time. So could we." It felt sudden. Too sudden. I stared at the message, rereading it until the words blurred. The trip was set to a private island off the coast, one of those small luxury escapes with limited connectivity and private docking only. It wasn't somewhere you stumbled upon. It was planned. Carefully. I asked for more details, and my mother responded vaguely. "We've already booked the villa. Just say yes, Nicole. Let us spend time with her. You need a break." That part stung a little. You need a break. Like Elena was a burden. Like I wasn't already carrying every invisible weight they pretended not to see. A few hours later, Daphne followed up with a message sent directly to Elena. "Let's start fresh. No tension, just the beach. Just us." Elena stared at the screen for a long time. She didn't say anything. Just sat there, legs tucked under her, scrolling up and down. "Do you think they mean it?" she finally asked. I didn't know how to answer. "I think they want to be in control again," I said. "I think they don't like how quiet we've been." "But maybe this time it's different," she whispered. "Maybe it's not a trap." "You're not a mouse," I replied. "You don't owe anyone a reset." She nodded, but I could see it. The hope, the longing, the quiet hunger every child carries for a family that loves them without terms. I should have said no. I should have trusted my instincts, which were screaming. But instead I hesitated. I told myself that maybe she needed this. Maybe I needed this. Maybe seeing them for what they really were without illusion would finally set us both free. So I said yes. I helped her pack, watched her triple check her chargers, her tracker, her meds. I printed out the contact info of the villa, just in case. Gave her extra snacks, electrolyte packs, a flashlight. And I slipped one more thing into her bag when she wasn't looking, a laminated card with my number, Ryan's number, and the embassy's hotline. It felt dramatic, but I did it anyway. The night before the flight, Elena hugged me longer than usual. "You're acting like I'm going to war," she joked. "You're acting like they've changed," I said. Neither of us laughed. The first sign came just past midnight. A low battery alert from Elena's tracker buzzed against my wrist like a mosquito. I was halfway through organizing receipts for quarterly reports at work, half asleep, half focused. At first, I dismissed it. Maybe she forgot to charge it. Maybe she was in a dead zone. But the more I stared at that blinking warning, the less reasonable those excuses became. Elena never let her devices die. Never. She charged things at 70% just in case. She checked battery levels like other teens checked Instagram. So when I saw the alert, I knew something was wrong. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Then again. The calls rang through, then dropped. A slow panic bloomed in my chest. Not loud, not wild, but dense and cold. I opened the GPS app, praying it was a glitch. The map loaded slowly, painfully. When it finally pinged a location, my stomach twisted. Her tracker was registering movement, but erratically. A half mile here, a pause, Then another movement, then stillness, and the dot. It was nowhere near the villa. It was on the northern edge of the island. No resorts, no facilities, no marked trails, just brush and coastline. I zoomed out. There was no possible reason for her to be there. Not alone, not without someone noticing. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring voice, light too light. Oh, she wandered off a little. You know, Elena, she needed some space. My blood went cold. Space, I said. On a private island, Daphne chimed in from speaker. Don't be dramatic, Nicole. She's 17. She needed to cool off. She'll come back. You're not concerned, I asked flatly. It's a big island. She's independent. You raised her that way, remember? There was something venomous under Daphne's tone. Something smug. She'll be fine, my mother added. I didn't respond. Not a word. I hung up. My hands were already moving, opening tabs, checking flights. Flagged the last ferry schedule. Too late. Commercial routes. All booked or delayed. I called Ryan. I hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, not since we did rescue logistics for a refugee nonprofit in the South Pacific. He answered on the second ring. Nicole. I need your help, I said. Elena's missing. We're remote island, private, no roads, no service. I have her last GPS location. It's not where she's supposed to be. I'm 2 hours from the coast. I'll bring a boat flare satellite gear med supplies. You meet me there. I'm on my way. I barely remember the airport. Just a blur of motion. The boarding line. The engine hum. My thoughts like blades. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I entered a cold mental space, surgical focused instinctive. The one I used to drop into during rescue ops when we didn't know if someone would be alive by the time we arrived. The kind of clarity that comes only when failure isn't an option. Elena's face kept flashing in my mind. Her black sun hat, her cargo backpack, her over-prepared survival kit. The one she insisted on carrying even when her cousins laughed at her. I had helped her pack it. I remembered every item. And I knew if she had that pack, she'd last. But what if she didn't? I landed near the coast as the sun dipped low and the air thickened with salt. Ryan was waiting at the dock with a boat, a full-gear loadout, and a nod that said more than words. How far, he asked. I showed him the last tracker ping. We'll get there before nightfall, he said, if we move now. We launched. The boat cut through water like a blade. The island loomed ahead, beautiful, silent, dangerous. Ryan studied the map. If she's not back by now, she's not just exploring, he said. She's lost, or worse, stranded, or abandoned, I said quietly. He looked at me. You think they left her? I think they planned it. He didn't argue, just adjusted course and pushed the throttle harder. We landed on the northern beach just before sunset. No footprints on the sand, no boats nearby, just silence. I checked the GPS again. Her last ping was 200 meters inland. We grabbed Gearwater medkit headlamps. Then we ran. We moved through the underbrush fast, cutting through branches, dodging low-hanging vines. The sound of our breathing louder than the insects around us. The sun was slipping behind the trees, casting the forest into gold-tinged shadow. I kept checking the tracker, but the signal had gone static. The last known ping was all we had. 200 meters northwest, I said. If she didn't move since then, we're close. Ryan didn't speak. He didn't need to. His pace was steady, exact. I could see it in the way his shoulders shifted. This wasn't just a search, it was a calculation. We passed a torn piece of cloth snagged on a branch. Black cotton. Elena's hoodie. I picked it up, hands shaking. Ryan pointed to a shallow path that looked trampled recently. She went this way. We followed. 10 minutes later, we found the first real clue. A half-empty water bottle lying sideways in the dirt. Then a wrapper protein bar, her favorite kind. She'd left a trail, not by accident. She was marking her path. She knows someone will come, I whispered. My throat tightened. Ryan nodded. That's what you taught her. Then we heard it. A faint sound like plastic scraping stone. We paused, listened. Again. From up ahead, under a cluster of mangroves, we saw a shape, small, still, curled like someone had collapsed mid-step. I ran before Ryan could stop me. Branches scratched my arms, my boots slipping against loose sand. And there she was, Elena. Her hat was still on, her skin was flushed too red, her lips dry, her arms limp, but her eyes fluttered open when I dropped beside her. "Mom," she croaked, "you found me." "Always," I whispered, brushing the sweat-soaked hair from her face. "I always will." I poured water into her mouth slowly, carefully. She sipped weakly. Ryan joined, checked her pulse, her breathing. "Heat exhaustion," he said. "Mild dehydration. Not critical, but it's close. You got here just in time." I held her hand, watching her chest rise and fall. "They left me," she said suddenly. "They told me to go take photos. Then they took my bag. What I asked, my main bag. The one with the backup battery food, the full water flask, the beacon. They said they'd wait by the trees." She blinked slow. When I turned around, they were gone. My mouth was dry now. "You're sure they took the bag?" "It was in the back seat. I saw Daphne grab it when we stopped for gas. She said she'd move it so it wouldn't get wet." Her voice cracked. "I didn't think—" "It's not your fault," I said sharply. "Not for 1 second." "They didn't mean to come back, did they?" she asked. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Ryan handed me a blanket from the med kit. I wrapped her in it, even though the air was still humid. Her body was cooling too fast. "We need to get her to the villa," he said. "Then off this island. She's stable, but we can't gamble." I nodded. I looked back at the torn cloth, the wrapper, the empty bottle. Each one a signal. Each one proof that my daughter had refused to give up. She hadn't waited to be saved. She'd worked to be found. We carried her back slowly, carefully navigating the dark path as night crept over the canopy. When we reached the boat, she was more alert, sipping water in slow, steady intervals. Ryan radioed for an emergency evac from the mainland. We docked on the south end of the island just after midnight. The villa was silent. No one waiting, no one wondering, no sign of urgency. Like she had never existed. I stared at the lit windows from the trees, fury creeping into my veins. "They think this is over," I said. "They think I'll scream and cry and make a scene and then disappear. They don't know me." "What are you going to do?" Ryan asked. "I'm going to show them who raised her." We spent the night at a small clinic on the mainland. Elena was monitored for fluid levels, kidney function, and heart rhythm. The doctor confirmed it: moderate dehydration, heat stress, early-stage exhaustion. Not fatal, but if we'd been a few hours later, it could have tipped the balance. I didn't sleep. I sat beside her bed, staring at the IV bag slowly dripping into her arm. I couldn't stop thinking about the moment she looked at me and said, "They didn't mean to come back." It wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't just a misjudgment. It was a plan. The next morning she was stronger. Her voice returned. So did the edge in her tone. She asked the nurse if IV fluid counted toward her daily hydration goals. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. When the nurse stepped out, Elena looked at me and said, "They planned it, didn't they?" I nodded. I believe they did. She sat up straighter. "Then I want them to pay for it." I opened my laptop. "Good, because I already started. First, the evidence." Elena had hidden her vlogging camera in her jacket's inside pocket. The lens was scratched, but it worked. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. You could hear Daphne's voice. "Go get some pictures by those cliffs. We'll wait here." Then Elena responding, "Okay, I'll be quick." Then silence. 10 minutes later, the camera was still running when she turned back and whispered, "Where did they go?" I copied the clip to 3 different drives. Then came the GPS data from her emergency tracker. It showed her walking out toward the cliffside, pausing, turning back, circling the area. Then stillness. No movement for 2 hours. Then finally my signal arriving from the beach trail. I printed screenshots of every movement point. I scanned the hospital intake forms. I added a copy of the laminated contact card she kept in her sock with my number, Ryan's number, and the embassy's line. She had written a note and slipped it in there too. "My name is Elena. My family left me on the island. My mom doesn't know. Please contact her if I'm found." That was all I needed. But I didn't stop there. I pulled up the text message from Daphne that said, "Let's start fresh." I pulled the itinerary email from my mother. The timestamp showed they booked the trip the same day Eleanor updated her will. It wasn't a coincidence. It was motive. And then there was the final nail. A recording I had on my voicemail from 2 weeks prior. My mother saying, "I don't think Elena deserves all that responsibility. She's not family in the same way as Daphne's kids." She said it as if it were a joke. It wasn't. I compiled everything into a folder on my desktop labeled Island. Then I opened my contacts and sent the full packet to Eleanor's attorney. Benson. He replied within the hour. Received. Meeting Eleanor at 9 a.m. tomorrow. This is serious. Then I contacted the local authorities. Not an emergency line. A direct connection with the island's private security office and local law enforcement. I explained calmly exactly what happened. Did they report her missing? No. Did they search for her? No. Did they leave the island while she was unaccounted for? Yes. Do you have reason to believe this was intentional? Yes. And I have proof. The officer on the line, Detective Santiago, paused. Upload the file through this secure link. Do not send via email. Understood. I sent it all. Then I closed my laptop and returned to Elena's bedside. She was awake, watching me. Are they coming? She asked. Not unless it's in handcuffs, I said. She didn't smile, but she nodded. Good. That afternoon, Benson sent another update. Eleanor has seen everything. She's furious, prepared to be contacted within 2 weeks for further action. She won't let this go. Then a second ping from Detective Santiago, preparing formal report and request for charges. Likely reckless endangerment of a minor criminal neglect, failure to report. Expect escalation. Still, I didn't call my mother. I didn't text Daphne. Not out of fear, out of strategy. I wanted them to feel safe. I wanted them to think they'd gotten away with it. Because when the truth arrived, I wanted them unprepared. By the third day, Elena was walking again, slow but steady. Her sarcasm had returned biting and sharp. When the doctor cleared her for travel, she asked, "Do I get a badge for surviving a murder attempt?" I told her not to joke about that. But neither of us laughed. We flew home quietly. No updates to the family group chat, no calls returned, no questions asked. They weren't worried. They thought they'd won. I spent the next week building a fortress out of facts. I printed every screenshot clipped, every voicemail labeled, each timestamp. I pulled data from the airline confirming that my mother and Daphne flew home 2 days before Elena was found. I acquired ferry manifests showing they left the island without logging any missing persons report. I requested medical records under Elena's release. Then I reached out to an old friend who worked in digital forensics. I asked him to enhance the audio in the vlogging camera clip. Get me the clearest version of Daphne's voice, I said. I want tone inflection, anything. He delivered. The line was unmistakable. Go get some pictures. We'll wait right here. Then silence. 10 minutes of ambient noise. Then Elena's whisper. Where did they go? I printed the waveform as a visual file. I annotated it. Every piece of data went into a binder labeled Island Incident. Then I started distributing it. First to Benson, who was now scheduling an emergency hearing with Eleanor and her legal team. Your grandmother wants this handled privately. For now, he said. But she has no intention of staying quiet. Then to Detective Santiago, who confirmed the island authorities were formally investigating the situation as potential criminal abandonment. We're compiling a report, he said. It will be submitted to the district office next week. Based on your documentation, we're recommending charges. I nodded. Good. But I wasn't done. I made 3 USB copies, one for legal, one for media, one for me. Then I recorded a simple statement. I filmed it at my kitchen table. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I explained what had happened. I showed the evidence. I never used names. But I didn't have to. The story was clear. I uploaded the video privately and sent it to Benson. Only release this if they try to go public, I wrote. Or if anything happens to Elena or me. Then I updated my emergency folder, the one I used to call the family fallout binder. It now had a new section, Island. Inside it, signed statements, GPS logs, copies of Elena's note, medical discharge, photographs of the abandoned location, and one final handwritten sentence from me. They left her on purpose, because she was in the way. I didn't want revenge, I wanted distance. But more than that, I wanted insurance. Because my family doesn't go quiet unless they're forced to. I waited. For 1 week, then 2. On the 10th day, Eleanor called. Her voice was calm but cold. "They'll be here Sunday," she said. "At the estate. I've called everyone in. Do they know I asked? Not yet. But they will." I packed light. Just the binder. Elena didn't want to come. I told her she didn't have to. But she looked at me and said, "I want to see their faces." Sunday came. The estate was glowing in late afternoon light. The family was already gathered. Daphne sat at the far end of the dining table, overly composed. My mother poured tea like nothing was wrong. My father was there, too distant as always, reading the paper like a shield. Eleanor stood near the fireplace, her cane in one hand, a stack of documents in the other. When Elena and I entered, the room went still. Nobody spoke. Not right away. We took our seats. I didn't greet anyone. Neither did Elena. Daphne gave us a tight, insincere smile, then leaned over and whispered, "Can we talk privately after this?" "Absolutely not," I replied. Eleanor cleared her throat. The room fell silent. Even the twins looked up from their tablets. She looked at each of us slowly, like weighing our worth in ounces of respect. Then she began. "I have an announcement regarding my estate," she said. "Effective immediately." The tension snapped into full alert. My mother stiffened. Daphne blinked too fast. My father lowered the paper. "Some of you," Eleanor continued, "have disappointed me in ways I didn't think possible. You tried to hurt what I love to preserve what you thought you were owed. You will not succeed." Daphne opened her mouth, but Eleanor raised her hand. Quiet. Then she lifted the documents. "This is the updated trust. All assets, liquid and real, shall be transferred to Nicole and Elena. No others are named." My mother gasped. "You can't." "I can. And I have." Daphne stood. "She manipulated you," she said, pointing at Elena. "She's a teenager. She's unstable. She ran off, and now you're punishing us." "She nearly died," I said. "Oh, please. You probably told her to stage it. You've always had a flair for drama." "And you've always had a taste for cruelty," I snapped. "You invited her." "You took her bag, you left." "She didn't have to go," Daphne hissed. "I didn't think she'd say yes." The room froze. Eleanor's voice sliced through the tension. "So, you admit you deceived her?" Daphne's mouth opened, then shut. She tried again. Nothing came out. My mother reached for her hand. My father looked down. "I've reviewed the evidence," Eleanor said. "I've consulted my attorney, and I have filed a report. The authorities will contact you this week, possibly tomorrow." "You're really going to destroy your family over this," my mother said. "Elena is my family," Eleanor replied. "She has more of me in her than you ever did." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Daphne looked like she'd been slapped. My mother stared at Eleanor as if she couldn't recognize her. My father kept sipping water like he could drown himself in it. No one moved. No one blinked. Eleanor set the papers down and turned her gaze on Daphne. "You always assumed I favored Nicole," she said. "But the truth is, I was waiting to see who you'd become without comparison. Now I know. You're small, selfish, and cruel. And cruelty, my dear, is never an accident. It is always a choice." Daphne stood again, voice rising. "You don't know the full story. Elena lied. She's been manipulating this family for years. She wanted the money. She knew what she was doing." I stood up. "Stop." Daphne froze. "You think this is about inheritance. This is about survival. About a 17-year-old girl who trusted you, who followed your lead, and who nearly died because you decided she didn't deserve to exist in your future." Daphne pointed at me. "You're orchestrating this. You've always made yourself the victim. You're so obsessed with being right that you'd burn everything down just to win." "I didn't burn anything I said. You lit the match. I just made sure there was a camera rolling." Then I opened the binder, pulled out one page, set it in the center of the table. The photo showed Elena lying on the ground, lips cracked, skin burning under a failing sun hat. Time-stamped, GPS tagged. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. My mother whispered, "That's not what happened." "It's exactly what happened," I said. "And the authorities agree. That's when the knock came at the front door. Everyone turned. Eleanor smiled faintly. Right on time. Detective Santiago stepped in with two uniformed officers. His badge was visible. His tone was quiet but commanding. Daphne Wright, Angela Marino, you are under formal investigation for reckless endangerment of a minor criminal neglect, conspiracy to commit fraud, and failure to report a missing person. You will be contacted with official charges and court summons within 72 hours. Until then, you are advised not to leave the state. My mother gasped. You can't be serious. We are, he said, and we have statements, location data, and video evidence to support all charges. I was trying to protect my family, she whispered. You abandoned a child on an island, he replied. That's not protection, that's a crime. Daphne collapsed into the chair, eyes wide, voice gone. My mother didn't speak again. They left shortly after escorted out. No yelling, no denials, just stunned silence and the clink of silverware no one had touched. Elena never spoke during the confrontation. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. Her silence louder than any scream. After they left, Eleanor turned to her. You remind me of myself, she said, but better. Elena nodded. Thank you for believing me. Thank you, Eleanor replied, for surviving them. That night, Elena and I went home. No victory dance, no celebration, just the sound of the house locking behind us and the slow exhale of safety. The next day, we received a formal notice from Benson. The estate was finalized. All assets were transferred to my name and to Elena's trust. The same afternoon, the sheriff's office confirmed charges were filed. Court dates were set. The system for once moved swiftly. I expected resistance, but there was none. Maybe they knew the case was airtight. Maybe they finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Whatever it was, they vanished. No calls, no texts, just digital silence. And in its place, peace. The court proceedings moved quickly, faster than anyone expected. Maybe it was the media attention, the clear trail of digital evidence, or maybe it was the weight of Eleanor's legal team pressing the system forward. Either way, within 8 weeks, we were seated in a small courtroom, the air dense with fluorescent lighting and consequences. Elena sat beside me, hands folded in her lap, expression unreadable. Daphne arrived flanked by a lawyer and a publicist, both tight-lipped and exhausted-looking. My parents walked in behind her, stoic, as if trying to pretend none of this applied to them. The judge read the charges calmly without flourish. Reckless endangerment of a minor, criminal neglect, failure to report a missing person, conspiracy to interfere with legal trust, attempted inheritance fraud, and then, because the evidence was too stark to ignore, attempted manslaughter. The courtroom didn't gasp. It just went very, very still. Elena was asked to testify first. She walked to the stand steady but quiet. Her voice was low but clear. She recounted every step of that day. The request to go take photos, the sudden disappearance, the realization that her bag was gone, the hours waiting, the moment she decided no one was coming back. I think they didn't care if I made it out, she said. I think they were hoping I wouldn't. There was no drama in her words, just facts laid bare. When it was my turn, I kept it short. I presented the data, the GPS logs, the hospital reports, the video clip. I explained our relationship, the history, the estrangement, the will. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I let the truth speak. When I finished, the judge looked across the room at my family and said, "This isn't a case of neglect. This was a coordinated act with financial motive. If not for the preparedness of the victim and the swift action of her mother, this would be a homicide case. You're fortunate we're not here for that." The sentencing came fast. Daphne was given 9 years, no parole for the first 5. My mother and father each received 6 years with eligibility for release after 4. As they were led away, no one looked back, no one cried, no last-minute apologies, just the shuffle of feet and the cold sound of metal cuffs. Elena and I stepped out into the sunlight, blinking against the glare. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Some victories are loud, some are quiet. This one was permanent. 9 months passed. The world moved on, but for us something had settled. Not the kind of peace you read about in poems. A quieter kind. The peace of not having to look over your shoulder. The peace of walking into your own home and knowing every voice in it wants you alive. Elena started therapy on her own terms. One afternoon she told me, "I need a space where I don't have to protect you." I nodded. That's fair. She still kept to herself, still sharp, still observant. But I started noticing the small signs of healing. She laughed at stupid videos again. She left cups half full on the counter. She stopped locking her door at night. She knew she was safe. We didn't go back to family holidays. No Thanksgiving spreads with passive-aggressive casseroles. No Christmas brunch with tension folded into every napkin. We created our own rituals. We hiked. We overpacked. We brought too much water, too many snacks, and Elena's favorite whistle, which she blew loudly and obnoxiously every hour, just to make me roll my eyes. I let her. Every blast of that whistle reminded me she was still here. They had wanted her gone. Now they were the ones who had disappeared. We went back to the island once, not for closure, for the trial. Elena didn't flinch when the boat pulled up to the dock. She didn't hesitate when she stepped back onto the sand. She stood in the courtroom, her chin high, her story unwavering. When the judge handed down the sentence, she didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just turned to me and nodded once. Later that night, she asked me, "Do you think I'll ever forget it?" "No," I said, "but you'll outgrow it." And she is, bit by bit, day by day. As for me, I'm learning too, to let go of the need for apology, to accept that some people never become what you hoped, and that sometimes justice isn't loud. It's steady. It's deliberate. It's survival with teeth. So now I ask you, did I go too far or not nearly far enough?